Very good. Hey, good morning, everybody. So we'll take a few moments for introductions. Then I'm going to read an introductory and just discussion for the sake of the simulation, so everyone's aligned on how we'll do things, including we'll talk about time. I'll kind of keep an eye on time as we go along. Otherwise, my name is Kevin Harrington. I lead R&D in the home care business at Becton Dickinson's Urology and Critical Care sector. I live and work in Atlanta, Georgia. We're in the process of moving, so I'm calling you from my father-in-law's dungeon-like basement, but I assure you I've been well taken care of. I've been fortunate to be a judge with IBEC for several years, and it's something I look forward to every year. Thanks to all of you for being flexible and working through this this time and doing things online. I look forward to our time together. Can the other judges introduce themselves?
Certainly. My name is Ryan Carella. I am the general counsel at Doral College in Doral, Florida, not too far from where you guys are. In addition, I'm also an attorney in private practice that specializes in education law and entertainment law.
Excellent. I'll go next. My name is Julie Gershman, and I am trained as a lawyer, but most recently have been the Global Ethics Officer at a Fortune 50 financial services company. And I have my own consulting company too, where I help high growth new companies, startups, create infrastructure so they're ready for VC investment. This is my third year with IBEC, and I love it. I look forward to it. As Kevin said, every single year it's a highlight. So welcome, and very excited to hear from you.
And I'm Carl Oliver, and I'm an organizational behavior person, retired from the Northrop Grumman Ethics Office.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Can the team introduce themselves?
For sure. My name is Tijen Jones. I am a junior, obviously at USF. I'm an interdisciplinary social science major with a concentration in political science and history. Just big words to basically say I'm in political science and history.
Nice to meet you all. As Thomas put it, I've been here for 3 years, but when I'm not doing IBEC, I am a student at USF as well. I'm a junior this year, and my major is mechanical engineering, and I just entered my department, so that's exciting. Yeah, nice to meet you all.
Okay, I'll take it next. Hello, my name is Samantha Nordstrom. I am a senior at USF. I am a psychology major, and when I'm not doing IBEC, I am studying and working at my part-time job. But thank you for having us. This is going to be really fun.
All right, I'll go next. Hello, everybody. My name is Veli Adoner. It's okay if you mispronounce my name. I respond to just about every pronunciation of it. I am a junior at USF, and I major in poli-sci, and I minor in history.
Hi, my name's Nathan, and I'm also a junior at University of South Florida, and I'm middle school mathematics education major.
Excellent, really good. Let's begin the simulation. I'll read a short a summary for how we'll proceed, and I'll also take time during our simulation. So in this part of the competition, the team, are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to us, the judges. Please make sure everyone knows who you are and who they are before you begin. You'll have 25 minutes with a 5-minute cushion to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem, and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all 3 dimensions: legal, financial, and ethical. During this time, teams will be uninterrupted. When you are finished, we, the judges, will ask you questions for about 20 minutes. During the Q&A, both you and the judges will stay in character. Then after the Q&A, the judges will give you feedback outside of the role-playing simulation. Some important things to keep in mind. The ethical aspects of your analysis are the most important part. However, these should be described in a simple, practical, common sense fashion. Using technical philosophical terminology or basing your argument on religious or theological grounds will be considered a serious weakness. During this presentation, every member of the team must have some sort of speaking role. Okay. Chung, are you ready? Very good. Let's go ahead and begin, and I'll keep time from here on out. Thank you.
Sounds good. And I will share my screen for the presentation. So if it looks like I'm clicking through things, it's the presentation. Okay. Oh, sorry. What's going on without me? Is everyone ready? Sounds good. Sorry about that. Okay. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the Board of Directors for inviting us here at One of Consulting in order to speak with you today at Electronic Arts. We're very excited to be here. As the second largest gaming company within Europe and the Americas, you set the standard for excellence. However, that doesn't mean that ethical problems are one of the past, and that has become exceedingly clear within the game FIFA through the loot box system. Now, this isn't just a problem within the game FIFA for EA. However, since it is the largest source of revenue for EA, we'll be focusing on that model today. Now, the system called loot boxes allows for a consumer to use real-world money in order to purchase a virtual randomized item. In FIFA, this comes in the form of a player pack, in which, if bought, allows for the opportunity to get a really good player, which in turn can help win games. However, as I mentioned with the possible part, it's not assured that you'll ever get a good player. It is a pay-to-win system, effectively gambling in a game rated E for everyone. Jonathan Pennicutt, a teenager hoping to get into university, has been playing FIFA for, well, as long as he can remember, and subsequently spending thousands of dollars doing so. He used to buy vouchers in order to hide how much money he was actually spending from his parents, all the while developing an addiction to gambling because of this loot box system whenever he was, well, just a kid. So whenever he got his first debit card and his mother was diagnosed with cancer, the only joy that he could find in his life was through purchasing more and more of these player packs and loot boxes within FIFA. But he realized, after it became effectively a buzz to him, he realized whenever he was signing up for college that he had spent every last cent that he had owned on this game because of that addiction to gambling. It was the only way he'd actually find joy whenever something so terrible was happening with his mother. So now he has no college money, no money in general, and an addiction to gambling, and he is far from the only one. A study commissioned by the European Parliament in 2020 found a strong correlation between these loot box systems and gambling, literally using the example of FIFA. And this was especially evident within minors. Just imagine giving your kids access to a casino in the guise of a competition with their friends. They don't even realize how much money they're spending, all the while developing an addiction to gambling. Now, this strong correlation has caused for a multitude of countries to start pushing legislation in order to actually ban the system and regulate FIFA within their countries, with a couple of countries already making it to where FIFA literally can't be sold in their countries. This is obviously a major problem for EA as your source of revenue is coming down a little bit because of that. So we have a solution for you, and we can really get into how we can solve this through first our ethical consultant, Julia, looking at the links between these loot box systems and gambling, as especially evident with minors. Next, through our legal consultant, Nathan, we'll be able to look at how this system is actually negatively impacting your company through these bans. Our product consultant, Belly, will give you an alternative to solve this problem. And finally, Sam, our financial consultant, can show how this current system is negatively impacting your finances, as well as allowing for the opportunity of the benefits for our proposal. There are multiple countries and millions of players urging the industry to self-regulate in terms of loot boxes. And we are here to show you how to do that in an ethical, legal, and financially beneficial way. So first of all, let's go to our ethical consultant, Julia.
All right, hello. As Tijan just said, I am the ethical consultant, and we're actually going to be talking about and laying out the ethical problem that we at One Up Consulting have found with EA's FIFA loot box system as it exists today. I will also be exploring how Jonathan is not just an isolated instance of poor financial decision making, but actually an example of the repercussions of a highly addictive system with strong correlations to gambling. But let's explore this through FIFA, specifically the online engagement platform FIFA Ultimate Team. Now, within this platform, my partner has mentioned that the consumers have the option to purchase player packs, which contain a randomized set of higher and lower tier players. Consumers engage with and purchase these packs despite the randomization aspect because of the opportunity to get those higher tiered players and therefore have a higher chance at winning the game. Now, we're actually going to watch one of these packs being opened, but before we do, I want everybody to be familiar and think about the similarities here between a loot box and a slot machine. Now, with a slot machine, the aspect of randomization is still there, the aspect of chance is there, as well as the connection to currency and the slow reveal of the tiles as they slide into place, whether or not you made a prize. There's also the aspect of auditory and visual reward that is with a slot machine and with a loot box, as we'll see. So I think the audio might have cut out on my end, but assuming you all heard that, you can see that when the pack was being opened, the game screen switched to underneath the stadium. This situation and setting created suspense as well as the flashing lights and the building up of the music. There was also, again, that slow flash of country, then the player's position on the team, then the team name, and then finally the player was revealed themselves at the end of this simulation. And we can see here that this is actually very similar to how a slot machine has the tiles slide into place one by one, and you could be so very close or think you're so very close to getting what you want out of that system, that final tile sliding into place or that final player, and not actually have that pan out. And so we can see here that this setting up this auditory and visual reward system, even if you don't get that player that you wanted or that monetary prize that you desired out of this slot machine, we can see that it exists and there's very similar characteristics between these two systems. The most important characteristic here is that direct connection to currency, which leads into the gambling aspect I will explain in a second. But first, let's look at child gambling as a whole. So we can actually see that child gambling has been on the rise in the past few years. According to a study done by the Gambling Commission in 2018, published by the BBC, it was quadrupled in the years from 2016 to 17, and a majority of the children that were surveyed in this found that connection, that they experienced engagement with loot box systems as their first experience with gambling systems. The Denmark National Survey also found a strong positive correlation between loot box engagement with children and those same children developing severe gambling habits when controlling for core demographic factors. A UK Parliament research paper published in 2021 also found this strong positive correlation. So what is it about this system that actually causes this addiction cycle? And so we can see, if we first define addiction as a learned compulsive engagement to an addictive stimulus which remains in the face of adverse consequences. This addiction in operant learning theory suggests that the principle of reinforcement, that is, positive auditory and visual rewards and the repeating of this system causes that addiction and feedback loop, which is called a ludic loop in gambling psychology. A slot machine is the typical example of this because the people who engage with the slot machine might not always get what they want, but they continue coming back not only to avoid loss of their money that they put into this system, but to continue to experience those auditory and visual rewards, which can become addicting and become a compulsive behavior if not taken care of. We can see that these same auditory and visual reward stimuli exist within the game FIFA, but this randomization aspect and these rewards are dangerous in this game specifically because of that connection to money. So children and people who engage with the system are directly pouring money into the system and expecting that chance, expecting that reward. And even if they lose, are destined to come back to this because of those addictive aspects, which creates a problem because there are major harms associated with children gambling. Specifically, if children are more at risk for developing a gambling addiction through the system, they have a higher risk of problem gambling as an adult, as well as lower self-esteem, poor school performance, a higher risk for other addictions, as well as feelings of guilt, shame, and self-hatred, which is an issue when you have a game rated E for everyone, meaning that children who are as young as 6 can engage with this system and can develop these habits. Now, has EA already labeled this as a problem? Well, in fact, I am very glad to say that EA has. In your 2020 financial risk assessment, you've already stated that you have made the connection between loot boxes and gambling in children, that it can be harmful to your brand and reputation and can negatively harm your revenue. And we can see this historically with EA's experience with Battlefront 2. Now, Battlefront 2 is another EA regulated game that focuses around Star Wars and came back out in 2017. It experienced such a public backlash because of its pay-to-play system with the loot boxes, meaning players had to engage with this system in order to win the game, that they had retracted this system. And EA executive Patrick Soderlund came out and said, EA got it wrong with Battlefront 2, and we can't afford to make similar mistakes, and we won't. Unfortunately, FIFA's loot box system being allowed to exist as it is creating a situation where EA will fall into the same issues that it experienced with Battlefront to a higher degree because we also have that gambling aspect in there. This is a huge, not only legal and financial issue, but an ethical issue. So as we can see, EA obviously has a corporate social responsibility to care for its community and players. We can also see that EA has a responsibility not only to care for its community, but also the rights of its community. Specifically, when EA says in its 2020 impact report that EA is committed to protecting and promoting human rights, specifically aligning with the values of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 36 of which talks about protection of exploitation of children. Essentially, what EA's loot box mechanism is allowing EA to do is exploit this addiction that they are developing in children, a generation of children learning this addiction, funneling money into the system. EA is making a profit. This is an enormous ethical conundrum, but it is also a legal one.
Yes, Electronic Arts has had a long history of legal challenges, but rather than going away, they are only getting worse. More and more countries around the world are considering legislation against the loot box system, and if this were to pass, that would mean that the largest source of revenue for EA would be lost. This is already coming to fruition within Asia. In countries like South Korea and Singapore, the legislation already exists and is handled on a case-by-case basis. In Japan in 2012, a system remarkably similar to loot boxes called the gacha system was banned. So that means all games sold by EA within the country that contain loot boxes are in a gray area legally. Now in China, the regulations are so severe that it's taken the world's largest market and turned it into the least profitable for EA. Now, for children under 8 years old, games with loot boxes are completely banned. For minors under 18, spending restrictions between 31 and 61 US dollars a month are imposed. Additionally, Electronic Arts are required to post the probability of receiving a rare player dropping from these loot boxes. What this does is it effectively discourages players from participating within this system. But this is not just an issue within Asia, but also on the other side of the world as well. Thank you. And so moving west of the meridian, in Canada, civil lawsuits exist, meaning that if they were to pass, then it would potentially cause new legislation adding an amendment to Canada's gambling policies and including the loot box system. Now in Brazil, a governmental agency has filed 7 lawsuits against different developers, including Electronic Arts, for the use of loot box systems. Now, if this were to pass, you guessed it, would impose new restrictions on the loot box system within the country. But why is Brazil such a big, why is Brazil matter so much? In fact, Brazil is the 5th largest market for profitability for Electronic Arts. So if EA loses this country, it will be devastating for them. Now, remember Battlefront that we mentioned earlier? In the United States, following the fallout from that introduction, both states and the federal government have imposed or have proposed new legislation against loot boxes. So currently, as we speak, a new bill is under review by the Senate, reviewing whether or not to impose new regulations. Now, why is this big for the United States? Not only would that mean that EA would be banned in its home country, it's also the largest profitability market that the company has. Now, but this pales in comparison to what's happening in Europe. In France, like Canada, civil lawsuits are being filed against EA, but in Spain, just of last week, have come out with a new study reporting finding a correlation between the loot box and gambling. Now, in the United Kingdom, just like Spain, last week came out with their study finding, and I quote, robustly verified the direct link between child gambling and loot box systems. Now, the United Kingdom is the second largest market for this game. Now, the last three are pretty simple. Belgium, the Netherlands, and in Germany, games with loot boxes are completely banned. And in Germany, it's for their minors. Now, what makes Germany so special? It comes at the recommendation of the European Union. Yes, that one. So the European Union has released its own study finding a correlation between loot boxes and gambling based off of evidence from the Belgian and the Netherlands studies. Now, if the European Union becomes involved in regulations, that would mean that 7 of the last 8 countries that have won the World Cup, the children in those countries cannot buy the video game that simulates that experience. Now, this sounds like the house of cards is falling down for Electronic Arts, but have no fear. In the European Union study that we mentioned, they also list legal alternatives to the loot box system, the most important of which, the Battle Pass system. Veli will dissect for you in greater detail.
All right, awesome. So now that we've examined many of the legal liabilities that have been proposed because of the loot box system, let's look at this very example that has been proposed to us by the European Union, which is the Battle Pass system. The Battle Pass system is a monetization system which rewards consumers with additional in-game items through a tiered and customizable system. Essentially, this comes down to 2 monetary streams that can be provided towards EA Sports. The first of these is the Season Pass, and the second is the store. Going more in detail, starting off with the Season Pass, we'll be able to see that consumers would be given a 100-tier season, with each tier holding an item that those consumers could unlock. Items progressively get better as the consumer goes higher and higher up in the Battle Pass. Here on the right, we can see a concept of what the Season Pass would look like within the model game of FIFA. Now, one of the best things about the Season Pass is that it allows for a massive amount of consumer engagement. Since each season lasts roughly 90 days, that means that a consumer could potentially be buying a new Battle Pass every single 90 days, allowing for a constant stream of content. There are 3 different versions of the Season Pass that are open to consumers. The first of this is Season Pass Free. This is the default option for all consumers and would allow consumers to unlock the first 20 items within the Battle Pass simply by playing the game. The second option is just Season Pass, or the Standard Edition. This would unlock the rest of the 100 levels for a small fee from the consumer. And the final option for those consumers who want just a little bit more would be Season Pass Plus. This not only unlocks the rest of the 100 tiers, but would also give the first 20 tiers to the consumer that purchased it, essentially so that they would start at level or tier 21 rather than tier 1. When it comes to progression within the Season Pass system, consumers would be able to progress either by spending time in the game and gaining experience to unlock tiers, or by purchasing progression to specific tiers, with each tier costing $1. The next form of monetary revenue that comes within the Battle Pass function is the in-game store. And within the store, we can see the sale of bundles. Bundles are thematic groups of items which can be sold from anywhere from $8 to $24, depending on the quality of items that are present within a bundle. Now, once again, one of the great things about the in-game store is that it is updated very regularly, so much so that it's updated weekly. The store will typically have anywhere from 15 to 20 bundles, with 5 new bundles being added every single week. And one of the best things about the store too is that it is much more of a niche option for consumers. While the season pass is a one-size-fits-all, with items being the same for every single consumer, the store allows for more individualized customization options for the consumer. Now that we've been able to see how the Battle Pass system can be implemented within the model game of FIFA, let's set a precedent for success within other games. The first of these is the most obvious with Epic Games. In 2019, Epic Games' game Fortnite became the most popular game on the planet. They broke the glass ceiling with this new innovative business model. In fact, that game alone, in 2019 alone, brought in $1.8 billion for Epic Games, a crazy amount of money. However, the precedent for success is not only in establishing this new business model, but also in transitioning from the old one to the new one. And we can see this in Activision. Activision's franchise game of Call of Duty previously utilized the loot box system in their games. However, in 2019, they made the switch to the Battle Pass system. And in only 7 months, they were able to double their total revenue compared to what they had in the loot box system. It is fairly obvious that this system is vastly successful for other companies. But let's break it down and summarize in 3 key points why specifically the Battle Pass is the best option for EA Sports. Once again, the first reason is because of legal liability. Going back to what my consultant Nathan stated about the legal liability, we can see a gigantic issue that is pushing upon EA Sports' back. And the greatest solution to this is to listen to one of the major regulatory bodies that would actually enforce these very legal liabilities that threaten the financial security of the company. And that is the Battle Pass system. Because the Battle Pass system very clearly does not hold as many legal liabilities as the loot box system, because consumers are able to see exactly what they're purchasing, and there is no image of risk present or gambling, it is very obvious that this would solve much of the reason behind our problem of legal liability. The second reason is because of consumer engagement. Once again, going back to how the season pass would be refreshed every 90 days and the store would be refreshed every single week, allowing for a constant stream of content going to consumers would allow for further consumer monetary engagement within EA Sports' products. And the final reason is because of public image. Once again, going back to Battlefront 2 and the vast hit in public image that the company received because of it, and now because of the hit that the company is taking from FIFA, we can see that the public image is not very positive at the moment. However, if EA Sports were to switch their monetary functions from a loot box system to a Battle Pass system, the company would be able to prove to the world and to its own consumer base that they are listening to their grievances and their concerns and are willing to make a change, something that would surely result in a more positive public image. Now, while I briefly went over some of the specifics surrounding the financials as to why a switch from the loot box system to the Battle Pass system is a great opportunity for EA Sports, let's turn it over to our financial consultant, Samantha, for some more specifics.
All right, and as my colleagues have mentioned, EA is walking a fine line where they can either be boxed out of markets or jump on top of the bandwagon and then push ahead of the crowd and gain that foothold in the marketplace. Let's break down some of the statistics that my legal consultant dropped and make them make sense in a financial sphere. As of March 2021, FIFA alone from all other EA titles made over $325 million across the globe. That is a lot of consumer engagement, and that is a lot of individual countries contributing to this revenue model. But what are these countries? If you refer to the slide, I have a list of the top 5 most profitable player bases. Coming in at number 1, you have the United States with 24%, Germany with 5%, United Kingdom with another 5%, and Russia and Brazil both at 4%. And if you notice, these countries, some of them are also on that potential ban list. And that means for EA that fiscal year of 325 million may be out of reach. The specific population player percentage that is going to be cut out of EA's player base tabulates to 62% of a total. And that means that the United States, the number 1 contributor to that statistic with 14%, the UK with 11, France 10, Germany 7, Spain 7, and Brazil with 4%. Those specific most profitable consumer bases will be cut out of the 62% total, as well as the actual player base themselves. All 14, as I said, total to 62%. That's an incredible loss from that 325 million profit potential. So let's break that statistic down even further. Our total player count statistics that our consulting firm found for your specific game, FIFA's title, was 37,600,000 players within a year. And if we break that down to the average worldwide, it's going to be 25,504,000 daily check-ins to this title. That is a lot of people checking in, actively spending time within this title, spending their money and their time and engaging with other consumers. And if we as a consulting firm look even deeper and focus in on the specific player base, that means that EA, your specific company, risks losing 23,012,000 players from the total player base and 15,812,037 players from your daily check-in. That is an incredible potential loss of consumers, profits, and outreach that EA could be capitalizing on and continuing that consumer engagement. And this number is not even tabulating the potential losses we have from a financial perspective regarding the legal fees that EA faces in order to keep the loot box system in circulation within some foreign markets. However, as my product consultant mentioned, there is an alternative, and that alternative is going to be the fundamentals of the BP system. If we disregard the free level and focus in on the two levels we can present to you, level 1 is proposed to be priced at a coin basis, which means that coins are going to be the in-game currency bought with actual money. So a 1,000 coin bundle should be priced around $10.99. And in order to purchase that battle pass with these coins, we propose that EA pitches them as follows. Level 1 should be 1,500 coins, where your company will make around $21.98 per purchase on that single level. And level 2 should be 2,950 coins, where EA could make around $33. And then the AC total pack, where you buy both levels at the same time with considering pack-wise, EA would make around $30. And this is not even considering the extra leftover coins from the purchase of the actual Battle Pass system that will be spent inside the store. So this Battle Pass system will incentivize purchases of a one-time buy and clear and consensus purchase within our consumer base, as well as other consumer purchases within the EA store within the FIFA game. And transitioning into the system is something that already exists within EA titles, such as Apex Legends, a title that utilizes the Battle Pass, as well as other competitors. As my product consultant has mentioned, this has been adopted by people within this marketplace that are ahead of the pack. EA can bring a lot more to the table. EA as a company can provide the consistency that customers crave. EA can avoid those legal troubles, stay on top of the market, and create the trends when adopting the system, because that relationship with consumers is important. As mentioned previous within our pitch, the Star Wars Battlefront game was an incredible loss, not just because of our image, but because of actual stock value. When that game was shelved, people pulled out of the company. They thought that this was the end for EA. They did not see a future with this Battle Pass system, as translated with a $5 million plus stock loss. Our pitch to you is to repair that reputation risk and take it off the table. EA can be innovative in this product by giving consumers what they want, providing this opportunity for success, getting ahead of that marketplace, and engaging with a player base of 62% of potential banned countries and keeping them engaged within the foundation of this profit system. And with that, if our pitch isn't complete, I would like to transition it to Tijen, who can really put the cherry on top.
Thank you. So it is clear that there are major ethical concerns regarding this current system with loot boxes. It's doing a tremendous amount of harm towards your own consumer base, including minors and especially minors. And this isn't just ideological. There are multiple countries ready and already have banned this system, and you are losing profits from this. But with our solution, the Battle Pass system, that can be solved, and entire nations of consumers can be open to you. EA's previous contribution to child gambling can finally be ended, and FIFA can truly be a game that is rated E for everyone. We are excited to conclude this presentation, and we are ready to hear any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon, and thanks for the presentation. Thanks for the discussion. It was certainly a compelling argument for the recommendations you've made. I do have a couple of questions just to better understand sort of the context of the situation. How is payment made by individual players? Is it simply a credit card that they sign up with and then provide access to as a function of each of the times they play? And are there any other options or alternatives for the way they pay?
Yes, sir. And with the current system that is enacted, in most cases that we've seen as a consulting firm, children have their parents' credit card already attached to the game. So when they go to purchase one of the loot boxes, all they have to do is click a button on their controller to roll, and it is directly accessed to this line, which is why within our proposal, we pitched the coin option, which means that you have a pre-purchased stack of actual currency within the game that will translate back to that US dollar. However, this will eliminate that continuous line of credit where you can just keep pushing a button and just keep rolling over and over again with money from your parents.
Okay. What type of warnings, disclaimers, or other communication is shared with customers now, and/or permissions or requirements that provide some check in the existing loot box system on the abuse and concern for gambling that you discussed? Are there any checks or balances, warnings, or statements that are communicated to potential customers?
I can go ahead and take this question. When it comes to actual checks and balances within this, the opportunities for these are slim to none and are typically more of a case-by-case basis with each country and each country's own regulations. So China, for example, will have the check and balance where EA needs to disclose the actual risk and chances of gaining a specific player. While in other countries, such as here in the United States, the only actual check and balance that is present is a simple opportunity within the game to where you can limit the amount of packs that you can buy each day. But that system is also very, very easily circumvented simply by changing the settings.
Okay. Very good. Are there any circuit breaker mechanisms that exist in a loot box system or in the recommended solution that effectively create a cap or some feedback mechanism in terms of the amount of money spent or how quickly an account has grown, or simply can, as a function of behavior and continuing to use the system, that the spending can occur, unchecked, on no mechanism of feedback, just spiral out of control?
Veli or Sam, do you want to take that one?
Yes, may I
Sorry,
ask
Veli or Julia.
May I ask a point of clarification within the question?
Sure.
Are you mentioning parental controls, or are you talking about in-game systems to limit actual purchases?
Yeah, in-game system to measure and limit actual purchases.
All right.
Oh,
Yes,
never
sir.
mind.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I didn't understand. Okay, thank you for the clarification. So within our proposal, we have took that into consideration, which is why we proposed a one-time buy-in with the battle pass, because you would not be able to continuously purchase that battle pass, and it doesn't have the same addictiveness as the loot box system, as there are no slot machine-like simulations, and there's no direct correlation with gambling within the system, because in order to engage in it, you have to have a one-time buy-in per season, and you cannot continuously purchase that, because once you purchase it once within the season within our system, unless you do over purchases where you have to go out of your way in order to obtain more extra coins, you would not be able to purchase anything within this proposal that we offer.
And with the current system, there isn't any mechanism like that with the loot boxes. It's just a continuous line of credit. The only time that that's actually regulated is within China. As our legal consultant mentioned, you have a spending cap between $31 to $61 for people under 18. So we're trying to fix that with our solution.
Okay. My last question, you discussed the recommended battle pass solution approach. Are there other solutions you considered, and how do those contrast with the recommended solution?
I can go ahead and take this one. There are very limited other options, and unfortunately the other options pose either legal liabilities or are as not as financially feasible as the battle pass option. The Battle Pass option has made both a precedent for success with other games as well as with one game within EA Sports and Apex Legends. While these other options, specifically one of them, is also referred to as the Season Pass system, although it is a very different, the only thing that it shares with the Battle Pass system is its name. That is very dated and has not been as financially feasible as the Battle Pass system.
Thank you. Okay. How about for the other judges? Any other questions you may have for the group?
Well, this is Carl Oliver, and I've got a fundamental question, I guess. What's wrong with gambling?
So I can take this. We kind of went over this in the presentation, but if we're talking about gambling and minors, we're talking about getting minors addicted to a habit that is not only financially harmful to them, but as we stated, harmful to them in other ways. I think some of the risks and some of the harms that we stated were obviously poor performance in school, if they're focused on this. There's also a mental impact of lower self-esteem. You have feelings of guilt, shame, and self-hatred reported in higher amounts, which can lead to other addictions and conditions. So overall, we can see developing these habits as a child especially has not only a negative impact in the short term, but a negative impact in the long term, as this can become a problem gambling and a severe gambling problem as an adult, which again has all of those aspects, but in the adult realm, well, now you have to be financially independent. And so we can see that there are major ethical harms associated with this. And then in connection to EA, if EA continues this system, not only are they exploiting those harms for profit of the game and for engagement, but they are allowing this to continue to happen and there to be a generation of children learning these habits from this game.
And another factor, if we would like to consider financials, another problem with gambling is that geopolitical legislators don't like it. And geopolitical legislators, they don't want to see it within their children's reach. So EA is risking losing these consumer bases if the gambling aspect is not removed.
On the other hand, we encourage people to learn to take risks, which in a sense is a gamble. So I wonder if we're not really talking about just the financial side of this, people running up debts.
I can add to that. Whereas in theory, the type of risk that I feel like you're mentioning is a calculated risk, to whereas, okay, I want to do this career. I know it's going to cost this much in college. I know it's going to take this to go and accomplish this. That's the type of informed risk that I believe you're mentioning. But in terms of gambling, it's completely chance. There's no skill, there's no pre-planning. All it is you put in a coin, you hope that you get what you want. So in effect, it's two completely different options. And in terms of children specifically, if our educational lawyer could probably add to this as well, but children are not developmentally ready to make these types of risks in the middle and elementary school age. And even up to the level of upper high school level, they're not ready to make that type of financial risk. So in terms of that, then it's not the same. So once they become adults, once they're cognitively developed enough, then they can make a better informed choice.
I would also like to add on real quick that in most of the places where EA has this system, that risk of how high of a chance they actually have of getting a good player out of the system is not revealed to the consumers of the system. So they don't even have the chance to make that calculation in most instances. And really what the system is not a risk based off of skill or a risk in-game that encourages them to apply this to the real life, but we can see that it is directly connected with gambling, especially with that direct currency relation and those other aspects of auditory and visual rewards, which create this addiction cycle and is just harmful for the people involved.
In the current system, many people can play free, can't they? In the Battle Pass system, can anybody play free?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and take this one up. In the current system, while you can play for free, I can tell you from personal experience that you can almost never win for free, which is essentially the incentive to actually play the game. While in the Battle Pass system, like I had mentioned, the default option for consumers would be the Battle Pass free option, which would give the first 20 tiers to the consumers for free by actually playing the game. So it would also allow consumers to better play for free if that's the option that they would like to utilize, rather than simply not playing the game because they are not encouraged to.
The Spain study that we mentioned actually detailed that it would take about 22,000 hours or more to get a good team in order to actually participate in FIFA well. And that's just the regular gameplay if you were to do it for free. I know I don't have that time, and that's certainly not how much time I would want any kids that I might have to be spending online.
I'd like to follow up on some of the questions my fellow board member Carl's been asking you, because when you first started talking about Jonathan and you talked about gambling addiction, then you talked about his spending, right? He didn't have money for college. It seems to me like the solution you're proposing is swapping out one addiction for another. So we're swapping out a gambling addiction to a spending addiction. So now we're taking kids' money and we're having them put it in a store, and we're doing it at odd intervals of tokens. So you have a few tokens left over, so you buy some more, and they're still not going to have money for college if they're that addicted to the game, right? So I'd like to hear from you on how I'm misunderstanding.
So I can go ahead and take that up. One of the primary functions of the Battle Pass system in its comparison to the loot box system is that it specifically reaches out, grabs the items within the loot box system that are addictive, which lead to further gambling, and removes them. So a large portion of that is the actual gambling sector. Whether it be toys or whether it be video games, kids are going to spend money on things. However, the biggest danger comes when they spend an abundance of money on things, especially when it's within the functionality of gambling. Utilizing the Battle Pass system by not allowing them to constantly re-roll within this gambling mechanism would allow them to limit the amount of money that they would otherwise be spending as well.
Not to mention, our solution removes the addictive aspects. When you first roll for that loot box as a child, you are faced with some of the most exciting stimuli that we have to offer within this specific product, which is why our company is suggesting we move towards the Battle Pass system, because we remove the conditioning from the actual loot box that gets children addicted to spending that money. There are no more fireworks, no more flashing lights, no more crazy noise, and no more excitement that would encourage children to keep rolling, even if they don't get the players that they want.
I would also like to add on to that, when we're talking specifically about money being spent in the store, in the way that we've set up the Battle Pass system, there are more checks and balances in place than there would be in the loot box system, as Veli mentioned. In the loot box system, as it is, you just press a button, but in this system, you would have to go through the additional purchasing of coins. And in addition to that, another restriction on that is that there are only a limited amount of items in the store at a time, and buying extra of these items wouldn't benefit the player in any sort of way. So there's actually less incentive to go and continue buying and engaging with the store during a single season past buying the items that are in there. This means that the players would be able to buy items from the store, but not have that spending addiction, because that's not exactly the way that the store is set up.
There we go. So, yeah, I'd like to continue off of Julie's line of reasoning here, because she sort of captured my bigger concern. I think while I'm convinced that your solution does put us in a better position legally, certainly, and financially, because we might be losing out on a lot of revenue if we get regulated by all these different jurisdictions for having the loot box system, I'm not convinced that we're not just substituting one ethically questionable construct for another ethically questionable construct. Yes, we're no longer going to use loot boxes, which have its own ethical challenges, but certainly the video game industry is no stranger to the ethical problems of the, free to play, but, pay to win structure that you see in games like Candy Crush or Bejeweled or any of these kind of games where you can get in and play, but to advance in the game, to achieve the maximum amount of success in the game, or at least to achieve that success in a reasonable time frame, you wind up having to pay more. And since video games are inherently addictive, putting the loot box aside, the reason why we play video games is that we get addicted to just the success of progressing in the game, which, as far as I'm concerned, is okay as long as you've paid up front for the experience, and so you don't necessarily have more money to lose. But I'm concerned that if we're adopting a structure in which you can buy the base product, but to have a better experience, to have more enjoyment from the game, to be more competitive in the game, we're asking people to pay more money. Isn't that still just, subsidizing people's addictions in a way similar to the loot box program? And so, I mean, are there still significant ethical concerns there?
Of course, I think that no system is going to be perfect and is going to have no ethical concerns at all. However, I do think that the Battle Pass system poses the greatest option for the company. And one of the realms within this is that, for example, within FIFA right now, if you go on and you play Ultimate Team, you wouldn't be able to unlock almost any items without paying into the system, in comparison to the Battle Pass solution, which offers the consumer the ability to unlock the first 20 tiers, which is 1/5 of the Battle Pass. It is a sizable amount of items that the consumer would be receiving, essentially enabling skill to overtake the massive weight that is held by the current pay-to-win structure of the loot box system. So consumers would be able to, through those 20 tiers that they would unlock, they would still be able to win the games that they would want to be playing, and it would not be as big of a pay-to-win wall that would be placed in front of them.
One final question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I would like to add on to that, because I feel like what we're approaching here is, if the items in the store are still essential to gameplay, then isn't this system still pay to win? And I think that's what the board of directors is trying to ask. And this doesn't actually have to be the case. We can include items in the store that aren't essential to gameplay, such as different stadium options that are just essentially more ways for consumers to engage with this system in the game without having the same pay-to-play system that is engaging with loot boxes in the current system we have now. So in this way, consumers wouldn't have to spend coins in the store in order to win the game, and instead would be able to do so through the free option of the Battle Pass, or if they wanted to, purchase the Season Pass and continue to get those benefits. So in this way, the connection between money and winning and pouring money into a game to win isn't there, but there are still options for revenue, as well as opening up that market again for EA to gain that revenue, as well as having an ethical way that the consumers can engage with this game and continue to do so on a worldwide level.
Excellent. One final question. I don't need to tell you all that EA took a public relations beating with Star Wars Battlefront. It was a complete fiasco for us, and really exposed and really just gave us a window into consumers' very legitimate frustrations with that game and how we attempted to monetize it. It was a misfire on our part, and we had to pivot. And so I'm curious to all of you, based on your research into that market and based on how our consumers are currently perceiving us, should your solution, in addition to what you've described in terms of FIFA and shifting from the loot box system to the Battle Pass system, should we also be devoting some of our resources to reparations, to rehabbing ourselves with our consumers, with what happened in the past with loot boxes? Is there anything that we need to do to rehabilitate ourselves with our consumer base? And should that be a focus of your solution?
I think I can take this up personally as an avid FIFA player myself, and an avid member of the FIFA community. I can essentially relate to you all that the biggest thing that FIFA consumers are looking for is acknowledgement. Acknowledgement and change within the problem. And that comes in the form of the Battle Pass system. Not only does that provide a more professional stance as to a solution, but it is also the most frequent option that has been suggested by consumers, even in the most unprofessional formats, such as blog posts that are on the internet. It is widely viewed as the North Star, if you see it in that way. It is the solution to the problems that many consumers are facing. And the only thing that they are really seeking right now is acknowledgement.
And we can see this system actually helping with that public image within the system of within Call of Duty. Whenever they changed that public relations aspect also helped. So the precedent of success is already here. We just need to follow it.
Excellent. Let's pause here. So we're going to step out of the simulation. I want to give a chance for provide some feedback, as well as certainly the other judges, and if the team has questions for us as well, let's have a chance to discuss those things. First of all, great job. I compulsively find myself wanting to go check my credit card balances. I have 2 college-age sons, and I'm concerned about them playing this game. So really well done. There are a couple of things I liked in particular that you did. So some of the other judges asked some really good questions. And Ryan, I am impressed either by virtue of your research or just intuitive understanding of these topics. Or then again, maybe you have sons and children like I who play these things, and you've taken the initiative to learn more about them ahead of time. Because I really like the way there was a team approach to answering questions. Veli, you took the lead a couple of times, but then each of the other team members followed up and added on and sort of buttressed and reinforced, as well as added other dimensions to your reply. You clearly understand the topic very well, and the ethical challenges involved in what also sound like some of the financial issues as well. I had heard of a couple of games you mentioned. I'm not familiar with this one, but I certainly learned a lot. But excellent job being prepared. Excellent job understanding your topic, and most importantly, I really liked your approach where, as a team, you answered those questions, and you really sort of robustly engage with the judges or your panel in addressing those issues. So I just had a couple of other thoughts I wanted to mention. First of all, really good balance in terms of discussing what you were going through, as opposed to just reading from your slides. I thought your slides and your discussion complemented each other pretty well. I'd caution you to avoid sort of emotional or slang in your discussion. One of the team members at Maven Valley said at one point, "Awesome." And there was another team member who kind of used a similar expression, "cherry on top." So I too am often tempted to use those types of expressions, but just try to be conscious and avoid those. They tend to be a little out of place in the context of scenario. Also, in this scenario, as you present to the group, to the business, it's clearly understood that they should know the context of your discussion, and you know it well. It may help to provide a little more background if as you consider how you'll present in sort of the future structure of the competition, just to help your audience. Or it may have been something that would have been facilitated by a handout, and that may have been something you communicated. I just didn't get it, or didn't have a chance to recognize what it was. But otherwise, I really liked the job you did. I liked the way you started out in terms of introducing and making the moral dilemma clear right away in terms of defining gambling and child gambling. And then I liked how you developed your solutions or proposed approach to address that, and excellent job in Q&A. How about the other judges? What other feedback might you have?
Well, this is Carl Oliver. I have praise for the presentation. I thought it was interesting and well done. The voices were great. The pace was great. I may have missed it, but I have encountered the word FIFA several times, and I don't know what FIFA stands for or whether it's important. The other thing I noticed, and it's a problem that I have, and I'm having it right now, as a matter of fact, it's eye contact. I think I tend to be looking at my screen instead of at the camera. It's a surprisingly hard lesson for me to learn to look into the camera to get eye contact with the audience. That didn't bother everybody all the time, but it bothered some of the people some of the time. I think we need to, on video presentations pay attention to looking into the camera. And my last thought is I didn't hear anything in the presentation that went back to the values of the company, the corporate values. I have the corporate values for EA in front of me, and looking at them, I don't see them very helpful. The core of this business is, in fact, they make 95% of their money from 5% of the addicts. And I'm not sure that they want to change that. And in their values, they talk about identifying key customers, which I suppose is identifying that 5% of addicts and catering to them where they get most of their money. So maybe their corporate values need to be readdressed. They need to go back that far and change the culture of the company a little bit to achieve the goal that you're trying to achieve.
Shall I go next?
Sure, Julie, go ahead.
Awesome. So I'm not going awesome, right? There it is right there. It was a filler word. I just did it too. It's very natural. And it happens sometimes when you're nervous. So good lesson. Note to self there. I really enjoyed your presentation. I thought it was clear. I loved your handoffs to one another. I liked you referencing back to your team members, which is something Kevin pointed out, that you work together. Your slides, and I'm not so sure that the video had the impact that you wanted it to have, but for people, if they hadn't seen what the game could look like, it really helped people understand how it was slot machine-like, which you could see, it was almost tangible. It was great. Up front, when you were introducing yourselves the first time, you didn't have the same clarity that you had throughout your presentation. And that's going to happen a couple more times. And I would suggest that you either pass it off to somebody else so that you have that smooth and people aren't extra polite and not wanting to jump in over one another, that you have a pattern that you do ritually that will help you. The personal story with Jonathan was an immediate attention getter. And then the fact that you expanded it and he's not the only one, right? I did have trouble understanding whether it was gambling addiction or the spending of the money that was the initial problem. I hit that home already. And the other item that two items actually. The first is, I thought the financials were good. I think you can make them even stronger with some numbers around that 62% of total, and maybe even some spikes out for what that means per country, especially those countries that aren't going to be covered by the new regulations. I understood that part. You explained very complex legal, geographical, schemes and where your customers were. You had a lot of overlays there that were very clearly put forward. I think some numbers there would also be helpful. And as I sit here, I know there was one other thing. When you were asked a few of the questions, you referenced that you had already covered that in your presentation. And that's basically telling the person who asked you the question either that they didn't understand it or and that's not a welcome feeling to some people. So sometimes trying to come at it from a different perspective without telling someone you've already told them may be more effective. And that's what I have.
So in terms of negative feedback, I don't think there's anything that has been said by others that I could add to. I think that's all, that's all been out there. So instead, what I just want to do is just, tell you what I really liked about it, because there was a lot that I really liked about it. I think I came across the right presentation. I think I picked the right one. One, because, this is obviously an industry that's interesting to me because of the work that I do for a living. And also I'm a gamer. I'm actually talking to you right now from my Twitch setup. So it's nice to be able to use it for a business purpose instead of just for leisure. But this is one of the best IBEC presentations I've ever seen. It was really strong on a bunch of different levels, and I think you guys should feel really good about it. That introduction, Tijan, is it? I don't know if I'm saying your name right. That was, that might have been the strongest intro I've seen from an IBEC participant. You told a story up front, which locked us in. You told us exactly what the issue was from the beginning. You set the table for your colleagues really, really well. It was an absolute masterclass. Great use of multimedia. I liked the video pieces. you articulated legal, financial, ethical really, really well. I think the legal presentation might have ran just a smidge long. I think we understood that like we were being regulated by every country in the developed world, and we needed to fix that. I think once you hit that point, you don't need to go deep into a country by country thing. But honestly, I'm picking nits there because that was a tremendous legal analysis that really set the implications for the rest of the presentation. Bringing up other companies and how, you know, they're doing what we're doing is always a good idea. Like a company never wants to be the first mover in something. If you can tell us, hey, this has worked for Fortnite already, I'm sold, because Fortnite's doing everything right now. So, you know, if you tell me it's Fortnite, all right, I'm happy to follow their lead on anything that they're going to do. I like the way that you ordered the presentation. I've never seen a presentation order like that. I've always seen intro, solution, and then some version of legal, financial, ethical. I've seen intro, legal, financial, ethical, and then some sort of solution. You guys went intro, ethical, and along the ethical further explained the issue more, then went to legal, then went to your solution, and then at the end went financial. And honestly, I liked that. I thought it was great to set the issue up, to talk about the legal and the ethical, because those interplay, to give the solution. And then we're all thinking, okay, this all sounds great. How are we going to pay for it? And then you bring us the piece at the end that just lets us know, don't worry, this is still going to be profitable for you guys. I digged that. I thought that worked really, really well. It was unorthodox, but it was cool. And then lastly, I really liked Veli's answer to my question at the end about sort of substituting one ethical problem for another, in that you didn't try to tell us that, you know, oh, don't worry, everything's 100% ethically solved. You know, we're grown-up business people. We understand that there are ethical trade-offs, and we understand that, you know, the solution you're going to adopt isn't going to, you know, necessarily remove all ethical questions, and that's okay. Business ethics is always going to be a struggle in that regard. And the fact that you were real to me and said, you know, this is, you know, there may still be questions in this, and we may have to revisit things later as circumstances change and as the markets changed. But when you consider all the factors, when you look at the legal and the financial alongside it, we think this is the best way to go, I think is a perfectly appropriate answer to that question. And just very, very impressive. Nice job all around, guys. Congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice job all around, everybody. Please continue that approach where you take a team effort to answering questions. It was almost like you knew the questions ahead of time. So thanks for your preparation. Thanks for knowing your topic. And clearly, you all have spent some time preparing and have figured out how to work together. Ryan, I got to say, I was impressed. You knew the topic. I just felt fortunate to be on the team and hear your questions and how things kind of went that way. I learned some things. That's all we have. Any questions for the judges?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear us out today. I really enjoyed being here and doing this again. So thank you so much.
I was going to say
Really
the
good. It
same
was a
thing.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you so much for your feedback. That means a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very, very much. I thoroughly enjoyed presenting it, and especially presenting it to all